Draymond Green certainly isn't the most popular player in Sacramento after the Kings and Warriors playoff series, but could he be exactly what the Sacramento Kings need? We'll talk about what Draymond brings to the table as a player and as a person, and if the Kings should have interest in him right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. My name is Matt George. I have the pleasure of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10, back here in the ABC 10 studios to talk about Draymond Green. We talked about Draymond Green a lot on this podcast, especially during the Kings and Warriors playoff series, the controversial moments that he had over the course of that series, jumping on the bench and yelling at Sacramento Kings fans after stomping Domantas Sabonis in the chest, being suspended for one of those games. Draymond Green, after the series, saying on his podcast that he lost respect for Domantas Sabonis for not giving him a high five or shaking his hand or giving him a hug after the series was over. Draymond Green has been on my lips and on the minds of Sacramento Kings fans for the last month or so. But now, today, we're going to talk about Draymond Green in a different light. We're going to talk about Draymond Green as someone who potentially could be a target for the Sacramento Kings this offseason. Now, when you're having this conversation about Draymond Green, and if the Kings should have interest in Draymond, you have to split it into two parts. You have to split it into Draymond Green, the player, and Draymond Green, the personality. They come as a package deal. You can't have just one over the other. And in many ways, very similar to like DeMarcus Cousins back in the day. Draymond Green's personality fuels who he is as a player and vice versa. They come together. You're getting all of it. So in this conversation, we're going to separate what he brings to the table as a player and separate what he brings to the table as a personality. Talk about the pros and cons of both and whether the Sacramento Kings truly could use and should try to go after Draymond if he decides to not pick up his player option with the Golden State Warriors. And then we'll decide, or at least I'll decide on my own right, and you can make your own decisions, whether or not he is a guy that the Sacramento Kings should target, or he could be the missing piece on a Sacramento Kings team that's ultimately trying to compete for championships. So let's talk about Draymond Green, the player. In so many ways, this is the reality, whether you like Draymond or not. In so many ways, Draymond is the exact type of player that the Sacramento Kings need. You bring in Draymond Green, you have your solidified, established starting four, no questions asked, right? Draymond Green comes in here no matter what you do with Harrison Barnes. Keegan Murray moves to the three. Draymond Green is playing that four. He's an enforcer. He helps on the defensive end of the floor immediately. He's someone who sets good screens, and he plays in a very similar system, or has played in a very similar system to what Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings do offensively here. He's done that in Golden State for years. I listed off a bunch of reasons why he would be a good fit as a player and why he is a player that the Sacramento Kings absolutely could use right there. We're going to go into more detail on each one of them. Let's talk about the defense. This is what is most enticing about Draymond Green as that starting four. Draymond Green is a defensive player of the year candidate almost every single year. He's a defensive anchor. He's a defensive rock. If Draymond Green is on your roster, you are immediately better defensively, no questions asked. If the Sacramento Kings can go into next season, or if you could guarantee me right now that the Sacramento Kings next season would have a top two, top three offense, again, would continue with their offensive versatility and offensive firepower like they had last season, but their defense would be in the top half of the league. Let's just say 13th. I'd tell you the Sacramento Kings are a 50-plus win team, and I'd tell you the Sacramento Kings are probably winning a playoff series. Draymond Green helps get you to that top 15 defense. He's good enough by himself and what he brings to the table to help facilitate that change for the Sacramento Kings defensively. However, does plugging Draymond Green defensively into your starting lineup and giving him significant minutes, because Draymond Green is a 34 to 38 minutes a night player. Does that hurt your offense at all? I would say no, because even though Draymond Green's not the best offensive player, even though he's not the best shooter, he's thrived with the Golden State Warriors team that offensively has been able to break your backs for years. The whole dynasty has been built off of the backs of the Golden State Warriors offense. They've just had sneaky, consistently good defense over the course of the Splash Brothers' rise and Steph Curry's MVP runs that have helped get them to titles. Draymond Green is not going to significantly negatively impact your offense to a point where what he brings defensively is bad, or it's not going to negate it, or not going to be worth it, if that makes sense. However, with Draymond Green, you also have to think about systems, right? And you have to think about fits with teams and how much of Draymond Green's success was because he was a member of the Golden State Warriors. That is an appropriate question to ask, and a question that is going to be asked about Draymond Green, period, for his entire career, really until he leaves Golden State and goes to another team. This is why I think he shouldn't leave, and I'll get into that more later on. But Draymond will always have an asterisk next to his status as a, four-time NBA champion, a Hall of Famer, whatever you want to say. He will always have an asterisk next to that status because of the group that he's played with. He played with Steph Curry his entire career, played with Klay Thompson's entire career, played with Kevin Durant for a portion of his career. How much is Draymond Green's success a byproduct of his environment, and how much is that success what he brings to the table? Now, make no mistake about it. Even if I don't like Draymond Green, even if I think the Golden State Warriors would be a good team without Draymond Green has been instrumental in the championships that the Golden State Warriors have won. Some people want to say the Warriors wouldn't have won any of those championships without Draymond. I push back a little bit on that. I think if Draymond Green had been drafted elsewhere and the Golden State Warriors, with how well they've been run, had to fill that position another way to win a title, they would have figured out a way to do that at least once. Maybe not 4 times, but they would have figured out a way to do that at least once. So if Draymond Green comes to Sacramento, should we expect Draymond to be the Warriors Draymond that he's been his entire career? I think the answer is no. Even if the Sacramento Kings have an extremely prolific offense, Draymond Green has so benefited from that Golden State Warriors system and has fit so perfectly, to his credit, has fit so perfectly in that Golden State Warriors system. I don't think it's fair to pluck Draymond, put him in any other situation, and say he'll be just as good, if not better. He has to leave and go to another team to prove me and prove any of us wrong. But for right now, Draymond Green has benefited significantly from the team he's played for his entire career, more than I think the team has benefited from him. But again, that's not to say that the Warriors would have won every single title and didn't need Draymond, which is just inaccurate. We also have to take a look at the reality that Mike Brown and Draymond Green are very familiar with one another. And this kind of transitions a little bit into kind of the personality and antics of Draymond, because Mike is very familiar with Draymond. Mike has dealt with Draymond. And one of the realities of this conversation is, if the Golden State Warriors weren't as successful as they are, if they didn't turn into a dynasty, if they didn't win as much as they were, they would not put up with who Draymond Green is and the things that he has done as much as they have. But the reality is, you put Draymond Green in any other system, including Sacramento. You put Draymond Green in Sacramento and you give the Kings the same success that Draymond has had in Golden State. I'm telling you, as much as it might be frustrating to say, the Sacramento Kings put up with that. Mike Brown knows how to handle Draymond, or at least is very familiar with Draymond from the years that he spent in Golden State. He has Draymond's support. He has Draymond's respect. And that would be significantly important. Some betting sites seem to believe that the Kings, if Draymond Green leaves Golden State, the Kings are the favorite to land him. I think the primary reason for that is Mike Brown. But again, Mike Brown might be familiar with Draymond. Does Draymond come to Sacramento and continue to be the Golden State Warriors Draymond of his career, help the Sacramento Kings win a championship just because Mike Brown is here? I don't know the answer to that question. But I think it gives the Kings an advantage in terms of managing Draymond, very similar to like the Lakers would have an advantage managing Draymond because of the connection that he has with LeBron and the connection that he has with the stars in Los Angeles. It's kind of a different type of connection, the LeBron-Draymond connection versus the Mike Brown-Draymond connection. But you know what you're getting, and you have people in place that understand Draymond and can work with him. And I think that's a significant thing to point out. So now we talk about the antics, right? The things that Draymond Green does that make him who he is, but also can't be ignored and also shouldn't be tolerated. If I'm bringing Draymond Green into Sacramento, I know that I have to accept the fact that Draymond is who he is and that he's going to bring that with him. He does not leave that in Golden State. And I've said this on social media, and Golden State Warrior fans took this as a slight or took this as a shot at Draymond. Hell, maybe it was. I'm telling you, once Draymond Green, or I should say if Draymond Green, leaves the Golden State Warriors and goes to the Sacramento Kings or any other team, Golden State Warriors will find out really quickly what all other fan bases have been complaining about when he watches Draymond, or when they watch Draymond Green play against their team. Little moving screens that he does all the time, or his antics of stepping on guys, or pushing guys, or tripping guys, or kicking guys in the groin. He doesn't do this every single night. I'm not trying to paint Draymond Green out to be a horrendous, dirty player that doesn't belong in the league. But he has done things to opposing teams and to his own teammates that have no place in any locker room, and I certainly don't want it in the Sacramento Kings locker room. Do I think Draymond Green's going to come into Sacramento and punch Kevin Huerter in the face or punch Davion Mitchell in the face during practice? No, I don't think that's going to happen. However, it can't happen. It's not okay if it happens. I also don't need Draymond Green coming into Sacramento and turning on his podcast, which I think is an excellent podcast, by the way, but talking smack night after night after night after night after night before the Sacramento Kings have established themselves and done anything. And this is the part of Draymond Green that annoys a lot of people, because Draymond Green talks as if he is the guy. Draymond Green talks as if he is just as significant to the success of the Golden State Warriors as Steph Curry is. He's not. If he has the confidence in himself to feel that and believe that, all the power to him. But he can't come into a situation like Sacramento where he could definitely help this Kings team win, but talk before the Kings have done anything. And he certainly can't come into Sacramento, it fail, and then him blame the Kings instead of looking in the mirror. Like, these are things that you might be concerned with Draymond. Truth be told, I'm not worried about Draymond having awkward connections with certain Sacramento Kings players, right? If Harrison Barnes comes back, we know they kind of had a weird falling out a little bit with Draymond courting Kevin Durant, replacing Harrison Barnes. Harrison, I guess, not inviting Draymond to his wedding. I have no idea. All this off-court drama stuff, they're both professionals. Harrison Barnes is a major professional. If Harrison Barnes and Draymond Green are on the same team, they'll be fine. Draymond Green, Domantas Sabonis, grabbing ankles, stomping on chests, calling him out on a podcast for not shaking hands at the end of the series. I'm pretty confident that if Draymond Green and Domantas Sabonis were teammates, that would be squashed and would be a thing of the past pretty quickly. Not saying that they wouldn't get heated at each other at certain moments during practice or during the regular season. Like, Draymond's a fiery competitor, so is Domantas Sabonis. When off the court, Sabonis is one of the nicest players on the planet. You watch Domantas Sabonis play, he gets hot, he gets angry just like everybody else does. Hell, Domantas Sabonis had the first ejection of his career pretty quickly after he was traded to Sacramento last season. So there might be incidents, but I'm not concerned about Domantas Sabonis being upset or Draymond Green and Sabonis not getting along as teammates in Sacramento because of what happened in the playoffs and the things that Draymond had to say on his podcast. That being said, if there was ever any concern that Draymond coming into Sacramento would screw up the camaraderie of that Beam team, which, granted, as fun as the Sacramento Kings Beam team was, and as great as it was to see them putting the fours up and taking pictures with their little, with the defensive player of the game chain and with their laser pointers, their mini beams on the road with the fog machine and stuff like that. Like, that was fun. That was cool. That was how this team really established themselves. It was a lot of fun. They can't be doing that next season if they're not just as good or better than they were, right? But if Draymond Green comes in and he messes up that flow, he messes up that camaraderie that the Sacramento Kings have, he's picking fights with guys or causing division or things like that. I'm not saying he would do that, but who Draymond Green is, there's always a chance. That would concern me if I'm Monty McNair. That would concern me if I'm the Sacramento Kings. Draymond Green brings a lot of accountability, or that's at least how he likes to present himself. What I like about Draymond Green, which I think was perfect for the Golden State Warriors, is Draymond Green was definitely a leader on that Golden State Warriors team and has been a leader for a long time. Draymond Green holds his teammates accountable. Draymond Green also brings his presence, his being a natural villain, a talker, and he brings that heat and brings that attention upon himself and takes it off of guys like Steph and Klay. I think that's where he's been most beneficial for the Warriors over this playoff run. I don't know if Steph Curry would be as universally, I mean, people don't like Steph Curry, don't get me wrong, and he's a showboat and stuff like that. But for the most part, Steph Curry is loved and respected around the league, even if he's playing against your team. I don't know if he'd be like that or as much like that without Draymond Green and how Draymond takes a lot of the heat onto himself. But if Draymond Green's biggest asset off the floor that he brings, or one of the biggest assets that he brings, period, is the accountability leadership, I don't think the Sacramento Kings really need that. Maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, yeah, they need that. But clearly Mike Brown and this coaching staff hold this team accountable. Mike has also said he needs it to come from the players a little bit more. I think De'Aaron Fox has grown in that area. The Kings players need to continue to grow in that area. But what they don't need is a drill sergeant coming in, kicking in the door and saying, this is my new team, and I'm going to hold you all accountable and scream at you because I know what it takes to win and you don't. That's not as enticing to me as maybe it would have been a year or two ago. Not saying it couldn't be helpful. I'm just not as enticed or encouraged by that. I'm not willing to put up with Draymond Green's antics just because the Sacramento Kings are winning. That doesn't make it okay. Now, I'm telling you, again, if the Kings had Draymond Green and had the success that the Golden State Warriors have had over the last 4 years, yes, they would be more willing to put up with the things that he does because of that. But for him to come into Sacramento and bring that with him, it could be, I think, more of a distraction and a hindrance than it can be helpful because it's new, because it's different. I personally don't want Draymond Green in Sacramento. As much as I think he could help the Sacramento Kings, I'm okay. I think the Kings can find some way to be successful without Draymond Green being that guy. I wouldn't hate him being here. It would certainly be awkward based off of the things that have happened between the Kings and the Warriors recently, and certainly things that maybe I've said on this podcast or Draymond Green has said on his, but whatever. Like, there would be some awkwardness that people would get over quickly. I've had a lot of Warriors media members tell me if Draymond Green came to Sacramento, very quickly fans would come in support of him. I feel like that's accurate. I feel like that's true. He's one of those guys that you hate to play against, but you love to have on your team. I understand that. I personally am not interested in Draymond Green. I should rephrase that. I personally would not like Draymond Green on the Sacramento Kings. But I understand why there's interest, and I am interested in certain aspects that he brings. If I'm Draymond Green, though, I'm not leaving Golden State. I'm not. I'm accepting my player option. I know he wants to get paid more money. That's another important thing, too. If Draymond Green is coming to Sacramento, he's coming with a price tag. Because if Draymond Green is leaving Golden State, he wants the bag. He wants money. His player option is like 25 million or 23 million, 23.5 million, something in the 20 million range. Like, he'll want more than that. I don't know if he'll get it, but he'll want more than that. If Draymond Green is leaving the Golden State Warriors, is not taking that player option, and then is coming to Sacramento, he's getting paid more than he's making in Golden State. So do the Sacramento Kings want to pay more for Draymond here? That's another aspect of this that doesn't intrigue me too much. But if I'm Draymond Green, I'm staying in Golden State because I know that team can still compete, even if there's issues that they have to figure out, like Jordan Poole and Kuminga and different things. They have things to figure out. But that team still very much can compete. 100%. On top of that, Draymond Green is established. He's a legend in Golden State. He will never not be a legend in Golden State, nor will he give naysayers the ability to say, see, you went to another team and you sucked. You're only successful because of the Golden State Warriors. You stay on the Warriors the entire time. Maybe people can put their asterisk on it, and talking heads like myself can say, but he's more successful because of the Warriors than he is because of himself. Whatever. The record books will show how the multi-time champion that he is, a Golden State Warrior for his entire career. He'll be a legend in the Bay. Hell, he already is. So if I'm Draymond, I'm staying in Golden State, and that's a pretty easy decision for me. Let me know what you think about Draymond Green, because I know you have thoughts. At MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Birddogs. And with Birddogs, their comfortable shorts and pants, it is all about three things: fit, comfort, and versatility. The fit is extremely important. You want to wear pants that obviously fit right and fit comfortably on you, that you can move around in during the summertime, you're not sweating too much in, that look good, and that ultimately are practical for everything. The versatility of Birddog pants and shorts are what are extremely important. I love wearing Birddog shorts when I'm out golfing. They're nice enough pants as well that you can get away with wearing to a semi-formal or even formal event if they match your jacket, match your button-down shirt. You can wear it with a shirt and tie. They feel good and they breathe well, and ultimately that fit, that comfort, and that versatility is everything that you could possibly want in a pair of pants or a pair of shorts. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, and when you enter promo code LockedOnNBA, you'll get a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. So make sure you go and take advantage of that. Check out their pants, check out their shorts. I highly recommend their shorts for summertime. Get a tumbler on top of that. Birddogs.com. Speaking of the free agency market, we've talked already this offseason about the Sacramento Kings decision with Harrison Barnes, the Sacramento Kings decision with Trey Lyles. What about Terence Davis? I've had people ask me, what do you think about the Sacramento Kings re-signing Terence Davis? I kind of go back and forth on this. I'm more leaning towards, me personally, if the money's right, bring him back. You know what he is. He provided big minutes and big moments for you throughout the course of the season and at times during the playoffs. He's someone that I think Mike Brown knows that he can rely on to be ready and be prepared. And I bring up Mike Brown purposely in this conversation because I think Terence Davis really benefited from working with Mike Brown and really enjoyed working with Mike Brown. Every time Mike issued any kind of challenge to Davis, whether it was publicly or privately, and I don't think I saw a player during games who was pulled aside at the bench or pulled out of games quickly and not necessarily chewed out, but talked to by Mike more than Terence Davis was. And there were multiple instances over the course of this season where Mike Brown would pull Terence Davis out, a quick hook sometimes, when he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, especially on the defensive end of the floor. Then later, he would put Terence Davis back in. Terence would then adjust and do what he was asked to do, or have a strong defensive play, or help with the weak side defense, better defensive communication, better defensive rotations, whatever it may be. And Mike Brown was the first guy up, cheering him on and rewarding him with more playing time. Terence Davis went from not playing early in the series against the Golden State Warriors to being a important rotational piece for Sacramento late in that series. And of course, games like the Brooklyn Nets game, national Terence Davis television, right? How good TD was with his 30-point performance. He can explode at any given time. He's a microwave offensively. He's inconsistent. He's been inconsistent throughout his entire career, not just his time here in Sacramento over the last handful of seasons. But offensively, you know he can explode at any given time. And then defensively, he has the capability of being better than overall what he is. And you could say that about a lot of different guys on this roster defensively, which Mike Brown is trying to work on that. To me, Terence Davis coming back on a team-friendly deal is a no-brainer. So he was making $4 million a year. He signed a 2-year, $8 million contract, $4 million a year over the last 2 years. He's now a free agent, unrestricted. I don't know if he's a league minimum player. I feel like the league minimum, which, looking it up, for a 4-year player was $1.84 million a year coming into this past season. So it's probably going to be a little bit more next season. I have no idea. But let's just say it was that $1.84 million league minimum for a 4th-year player. I think Terence Davis is worth more than that. I think Terence Davis is going to ultimately get more than that, even if he is a inconsistent rotational scoring 2 or 3, a wing. But I wouldn't go crazy. Like, if I could get Terence Davis back on the same deal, or I can get Terence Davis back even for a slight upgrade of like $5 or $6 million a year, I'm okay with doing that. I am okay with doing that if I'm the Sacramento Kings. The Kings can afford to do that. But are you going to give a player more money when he's going to have maybe a little bit less of a role. Now, that could change next season. Terence Davis could get more of a role and more consistent playing time. And Terence Davis said himself, I think in his exit interview, Terence was talking about how he felt this was one of his best years, despite the fact that it was the fewest minutes overall, I think, that he's played in his career. I think that's something along the lines of what he said. I don't have the numbers in front of me to confirm that. That's what makes me question whether or not Terence Davis wants to return. I think he is very much a part of the culture here. He fits in great in the locker room, great teammate, gets along with this group, gets along with the coaching staff. I just spoke with you about the relationship that he and Mike Brown have and how well he's benefited from Mike. But does Terence Davis want to willingly re-sign with the Sacramento Kings, knowing that here he's going to have nights where he plays a lot and has the potential to go off, and then he's going to have maybe a week or two that he doesn't sniff the floor? Again, he could come into Sacramento and re-sign with Sacramento and say, I'm going to change that next year. Now I know I got a year with Mike Brown under my belt. I know what he needs. I'm going to work this offseason, and I'm going to come in and establish myself as absolutely a part of an 8 or 9 man rotation every single night. He could do that, in which case, if the Kings can bring him back for $4 to $6 million a year, solid, excellent. But I have a feeling, this is easy for me to say, I have a feeling that Terence Davis is more playing time and opportunity motivated than he is money motivated. Could be dead wrong. And of course, in a perfect world, you'd like to get paid more to have a ton of opportunity. It might be a question of, depending upon the interest in Terence Davis in the open market, it might be a question of opportunity versus money. Do the Sacramento Kings provide you more opportunity, but there's more money elsewhere? Is there another team that provides you less money, but more opportunity? Or do you stay in Sacramento where you know what you're going to get and maybe the money's right in the middle? We don't know the motivations of Terence Davis. I was asked on D-Lo and KC last week, and I hesitated. They said, do I think Terence Davis is going to be a Sacramento King or not? I hesitated. I thought about it as much as I could in a quick time span on live radio, and I said no. And I think I'm going to stick with that. I don't think Terence Davis is going to return. I think Terence Davis thinks that he can get more of an opportunity, and I think he's right. I think elsewhere, Terence Davis might be able to get more of a consistent opportunity than he's gotten here in Sacramento. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he's back in a Kings uniform. The money would ultimately determine this, but I know the Sacramento Kings are not going to massively overpay, so I have no reason to believe that if he did return, that I'd be upset by the number that the Sacramento Kings brought him back for financially. But I think it makes more sense for Terence Davis to try the open market for an opportunity to come in and show, hey, I should be paid more. I think Terence Davis would take a one-year deal with a team that he's going to play more, taking the gamble that if he has a good year and takes advantage of the opportunity that he gets, he'll get an even better contract from the same team or a different team next offseason. If I'm putting myself in the headspace of Terence Davis, and I think I'm gambling on myself if I'm TD. Don't know if that's the right decision for him. I think that's the move for Terence Davis personally, which means he's no longer a Sacramento King. But what about potential replacements? Well, you got 2 of them potentially that have already been on your roster that you could, in theory, replace Terence Davis with. The first one is Kessler Edwards. The second one is Keon Ellis. Neither of those guys might excite you very much. Kessler Edwards showed what he could do on the defensive end. His three-point numbers were not terrible, but you would like more offensively out of Kessler Edwards if he's going to be on the floor, especially for the defensive versatility that he brings. Keon Ellis had a really strong season with in the G League with the Stockton Kings. He and Neemias Queta are both restricted free agents, so we'll have to see what the Kings decide to do with both of those players. But I think Keon Ellis could potentially fill that Terence Davis role, be more of an established defender. He has to get bigger, but could be more of an established defender and maybe just as good offensively, or hopefully just as good offensively. Maybe can't go off for a 30-pointer on national TV, a 30-point game on national TV against the Brooklyn Nets, but I don't know. Neither of those 2 guys I get are the most exciting as Terence Davis replacements, but it's not the end of the world, and you already are familiar with the 2 of them. But there are other names on here. Now, this is a dream for me, but it's pretty unlikely. Terrence Ross, right? Terrence Ross is someone who I've liked in the league for a long time with his time in Orlando, his time in Toronto. Like, I like Terrence Ross a lot. I've wanted Terrence Ross in Sacramento for a long time. I don't know why Terrence Ross would sign in Sacramento to be a Terence Davis. Well, let's put it this way. If the Sacramento Kings signed Terrence Ross, I think he is an immediate improvement on Terence Davis, and he gets the role reflecting that. I think Terrence Ross comes into Sacramento, and he's definitely a part of a 9-man rotation without really trying too hard. That's me personally. I don't know why Terrence Ross would sign here. Maybe the money's right. Maybe he likes what the Sacramento Kings are doing and believes that he can be part of a winner here in Sacramento. But Terrence Ross is certainly on that list for me. Another name that Sacramento Kings fans I know have talked a lot about is Cam Reddish. He's a restricted free agent. I think he's with Portland, right? So does Portland let him walk? Can the Sacramento Kings get him for cheap? I don't know, but Cam Reddish is another person out there that could potentially be a cheap replacement. I wrote this down and I put a question mark next to it. Seth Curry, former Sacramento King, Seth Curry. More of a point guard, off-ball, two-guard, undersized two-guard. He does kill two birds with one stone when it comes to Matthew Dellavedova leaving, and I'll talk about that in the next segment, but Seth Curry is out there. And then Damian Lee, another guy that I wrote down. Don't know if he has any interest, don't know if he would be the right target, but there are some names out there that the Kings let Terence Davis go. They can find in free agency that's not going to break the bank and going to be unrealistic or overly unrealistic, I suppose. Would you keep Terence Davis? Would you let Terence Davis walk? Who would you replace Terence Davis with if you had to? Let me know at MattGeorgeSac on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. The end of an era. Matthew Dellavedova's time with the Sacramento Kings has seemingly come to an end after signing a 1-year deal and spending the entire year with the Sacramento Kings, getting limited playing time, but also always being exciting when he did get to play. Matthew Dellavedova is going back to Australia. I signed a deal, I think a 2-year deal, to play for Melbourne United. I'm sad to see Matthew Dellavedova go because I loved the idea of Delly joining Mike Brown's coaching staff. But I think clearly Delly still wants to play. And if you still want to play, you can go home, go and play for a team that I think he's played for Melbourne United before. He has a history with them. He can go there and be an important piece and play out the remainder of his career. And who knows if he decides to come back in the NBA in some coaching capacity. But he was so important this season as a veteran leader in that locker room. The story came out that Chris Biederman from the Sacramento Bee wrote about the interaction that Dellavedova and Terence Davis had on a team flight one night when Davis was questioning himself and not really feeling himself, and how Matthew Dellavedova kind of gave him advice and helped him get in the right headspace, and how positively TD responded to that. Like, Matthew Dellavedova, he took up a roster spot, and maybe you could have found a better player for that roster spot, but you probably couldn't have found a better leader. Like, what Matthew Dellavedova, I think, brought to the Sacramento Kings this year, brought to the locker room, was awesome. What he brought to practices, how well he knows Mike Brown and could be an extension of Mike Brown in a lot of ways, could help the younger players with his veteran leadership, had the playoff experience even though he hurt his hand and never got to play in the playoffs. Like, what I remember hearing Mike Brown talking about the team dinner that Matthew Dellavedova spoke at, and talked about guarding Steph Curry when he was a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers when the Cavaliers beat the Warriors to win a championship. Like, what Delly brought to the Sacramento Kings, I think, was invaluable. And that's what I'm sad to see go. But I'm happy for Delly that he can continue his playing career, that he can go home to Australia. I'm always going to be a fan of Matthew Dellavedova. Also, just an amazing guy from the limited interactions that I got to have with him. So I wish him the absolute best over there. So we touched on a lot. Draymond Green, Terence Davis, Matthew Dellavedova. You have any thoughts on any of those three players? Send them to me. Let me know. Would love to hear from you about them. I have more great guests scheduling coming next week. We dive heavy into draft coverage again next week. I do still have a topic that I wanted to talk about, and I'm trying to find out the right time. It may be as early as tomorrow or in the next couple days. But if the Sacramento Kings were to simply run this team back, the team from last year, the Beam team, run them back, same core and same pieces, if they could just hit the reset button and do it over again, would that be good enough? Should we expect the team, if they just ran it back, second year fully together, to improve upon the season that they had? That's going to be the topic hopefully it will be the next episode of Locked On Kings. It'll be a future episode for sure in the very immediate future. So start thinking about that and start sending me your thoughts on that too. And I'll have a podcast to share my thoughts on that and break that all down. Really appreciate your support as always here of the Locked On Kings podcast. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.